Before we step into the life of Sir Isaac Newton, the man who redefined the universe itself, pause for a moment and hit that like button. Share this video with your friends, and make sure you subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary journeys into the lives of history's greatest minds. Now, imagine a world torn by war and plague, a tiny English village covered in winter fog, and the cry of a fragile newborn baby, who many thought would not live to see the morning. That baby would not only survive, but grow into one of the most brilliant, most mysterious, and most influential figures in all of human history. His name, Isaac Newton. Newton was born on Christmas Day, 1642, in Woolsthorpe, a small village in Lincolnshire, England. To give you some perspective, this was the same year that Galileo Galilei, the Italian scientist often called the father of modern physics, passed away. It was as though one giant of discovery had left the stage, just as another was entering it. Newton's father, also named Isaac, had died just 3 months earlier, leaving his mother, Hannah Ayscough, a widow. The infant Isaac was born premature, so tiny and weak that many doubted he would live even a few hours. Later in life, Newton himself would often remark that he was born as a child, so small he might have fit into a quart mug. Yet destiny had other plans for him. Newton's early years were marked not by joy, but by loneliness. When he was just 3 years old, his mother remarried a wealthy clergyman named Barnabas Smith and left young Isaac in the care of his grandmother. Imagine the wound of abandonment at such a tender age. It left scars that shaped Newton's entire character. He grew up withdrawn, intensely private, often feeling like an outsider. Unlike other boys who played and laughed, Newton spent hours alone, building small mechanical contraptions. He made water clocks, sundials, tiny windmills, and even kites with lanterns tied to their tails, which frightened villagers into thinking they had seen ghosts flying in the night sky. From the start, his world was different. While others lived in the present, Isaac lived in his mind. But here's a surprising truth. Newton was not considered a brilliant student at first. In fact, in grammar school at Grantham, he was quiet and unremarkable. His classmates mocked him, and he was bullied by a larger boy. One day, Newton decided he had endured enough humiliation. He fought back, not just with fists, but with a vow. He would surpass all his classmates academically. And he did. He became obsessed with study, climbing to the top of his class. For Newton, success was no longer just about knowledge. It was about revenge, pride, and proving his worth. This burning determination would remain with him throughout his life, fueling both his genius and his darker rivalries. At 18, Newton entered Trinity College, Cambridge, in 1661. The university was steeped in tradition, still teaching the ancient works of Aristotle. But a quiet revolution in thought was already underway. Scholars across Europe were beginning to question old ideas. Descartes, Kepler, and Galileo had laid the foundations of a new scientific age. Newton arrived at the perfect moment. Yet instead of merely absorbing knowledge, he began building his own system of the world. He devoured books on mathematics and natural philosophy, teaching himself geometry, algebra, optics, and astronomy. He even filled notebooks with secret writings, exploring everything from the refraction of light to alchemical experiments. Newton wasn't just a student. He was already becoming a thinker far beyond his time. During his Cambridge years, Newton kept a massive notebook that later became famous as the Waste Book. In it, he scribbled down everything that fascinated him. Early ideas about calculus, theories about planetary motion, reflections on the nature of God, and even mystical speculations. It was chaotic, wild, and brilliant, a window into the mind of a genius in formation. In those pages, you can see a young man restless to uncover secrets hidden from the rest of the world. What's more, he studied not only mathematics and science, but also ancient texts, searching for hidden wisdom. To Newton, knowledge had no boundaries. He believed truth was one, whether found in the Bible, in numbers, or in the stars above. Then came disaster. In 1665, the Great Plague struck England, killing tens of thousands. Cambridge shut down, and students fled. Newton returned home to Woolsthorpe. For many, this was a time of fear and paralysis. But for Newton, isolation became liberation. Away from lectures and professors, he entered the most productive period of his entire life, later called his Annus Mirabilis, the Year of Wonders. In his family orchard, he played with prisms, splitting sunlight into rainbows and laying the foundation for his theory of optics. He scribbled the mathematical seeds of calculus, a tool that would change mathematics forever. And in that same countryside, he pondered the force that made apples fall and planets orbit. Was it the same? Could one law explain both? Think about it. While plague ravaged England, while families mourned and cities shut their gates, a 23-year-old young man in rural Lincolnshire was quietly reshaping human understanding of reality. No laboratories, no teams of assistants, no funding. Just a mind that refused to stop asking questions. This is one of the most extraordinary facts about Newton. His greatest breakthroughs didn't come from collaboration, but from solitude. He was not just studying the world. He was rebuilding it in his imagination. And though he would not publish these ideas for many years, the foundations were already there, waiting for the right moment to shock the world. And so, as Newton returned to Cambridge after the plague, he carried with him discoveries that would transform science. But his journey was only beginning. In the next part of our story, we'll see how Newton revealed his theories, clashed with rivals, and became a legend, yet also a man haunted by secrecy, pride, and obsession. Stay with us, because the tale of Isaac Newton is about to grow even more intense. And before we continue, don't forget, like this video, share it with others who love history, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the rest of this incredible journey. When Cambridge reopened after the plague, Newton returned with a mind full of unpolished discoveries. He was no longer the student he once had been. Now, he was a thinker, carrying within him the seeds of revolutionary theories. Yet, for years, Newton remained cautious. He rarely shared his ideas, scribbling them instead into endless notes, hiding them from the world. This secrecy wasn't just a habit, it was his nature. Newton feared criticism, feared being misunderstood, and above all, feared someone else might claim his discoveries before he perfected them. One of Newton's earliest breakthroughs came from his fascination with light. Using prisms, he showed that white light was not pure, but composed of colors. This was shocking, because the accepted belief was that prisms somehow stained light. Newton proved the opposite. The colors were already hidden inside the beam. He demonstrated this in Cambridge, by passing sunlight through one prism to split it, then through another prism to recombine it back into white light. This discovery changed optics forever, but instead of applause, Newton's ideas sparked arguments, especially with the brilliant yet difficult Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke, a senior scientist and a member of the Royal Society, was not the kind of man to quietly accept someone else's revolutionary idea. Hooke was brilliant in his own right, but he was also combative, insecure, and deeply jealous of others' achievements. When Newton presented his ideas about light and colors, Hooke dismissed them and claimed that he had already studied similar effects. The clash quickly turned personal. Newton, who could not tolerate criticism, withdrew from public debate, retreating further into his shell. This pattern, brilliance followed by retreat, would mark much of his career. Despite his reclusiveness, Newton's genius could not remain hidden forever. In the early 1680s, his friend Edmund Halley, the same Halley whose name graces the famous comet, visited Newton and asked about planetary orbits. Newton revealed that he had long ago calculated that planets must move in ellipses under the pull of a central force. Halley was stunned. He urged Newton to publish, and after much persuasion, Newton began writing what would become his masterpiece, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, known simply as the Principia. Published in 1687, the Principia was unlike anything the world had ever seen. In its pages, Newton set down his three laws of motion and the universal law of gravitation. For the first time, there was a framework to explain why apples fell, why tides rose, why the moon circled Earth, and why planets danced around the sun. The universe was no longer a mystery, but a vast machine operating under universal laws. The book was so dense, so filled with mathematical rigor, that only a handful of people could fully understand it. Yet its impact was immediate. Science was reborn on a new foundation. Of course, Hooke once again claimed credit. He argued that Newton had borrowed the idea of gravitation from him. Newton, enraged, refused to acknowledge Hooke's contributions. Their feud grew so bitter that Newton nearly withheld the Principia from publication. It was only Halley's tireless support, both intellectually and financially, that pushed the book into the world. To this day, historians debate how much Hooke had truly anticipated. But what is certain is that Newton's genius gave the world not just ideas, but the mathematical proof and framework that transformed them into universal law. After the Principia, Newton became a legend. No longer just a Cambridge professor, he was hailed across Europe as the man who had unlocked the secrets of the universe. The Royal Society celebrated him, scholars wrote about him, and young scientists treated him like a hero. Yet fame did not soften Newton's nature. He remained solitary, suspicious, and often hostile to rivals. Behind his sharp mind lay a fragile ego, always ready to see enemies, even where none existed. He guarded his discoveries fiercely, sometimes more like a warrior than a scholar. Few people know that Newton's obsession went beyond mathematics and physics. He spent countless hours in alchemy, conducting secret experiments in his rooms. He inhaled toxic fumes, handled mercury and lead, and filled notebooks with cryptic formulas. Some believe this exposure damaged his health, leading to periods of mental breakdown. At the same time, he poured energy into theology, writing more about biblical prophecy than about science. Newton believed he was chosen by God to uncover hidden truths, whether in scripture or in nature. To him, there was no conflict. Science and faith were two halves of the same divine puzzle. In 1703, Newton became president of the Royal Society, one of the most prestigious scientific institutions in the world. He held the position for over 2 decades, ruling it with authority. Under his leadership, the society gained prominence, but Newton also used it to silence rivals. He controlled publications, ensured his enemies were forgotten, and reshaped scientific history in his own favor. In this way, Newton was not just a man of ideas. He was a man of power, determined to leave his mark not only through discovery, but also through influence. By the time Newton reached the height of his fame, he had become more than a scientist. He was a symbol of human intellect, a man who had proven that the universe followed laws that could be known, measured, and predicted. But the story of Newton does not end with glory. Ahead lay new challenges, new responsibilities, and new controversies that would shape his later life. In Part 3, we will explore Newton's role as master of the mint, his knighthood, his later years, and the darker shadows that haunted him until the end. Stay with us, and don't forget, like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of Newton's extraordinary journey.